Hey everybody, so it's time to induct another fighter into my Enforcers Hall of Fame, and I want to change it up a little bit here. For the first two, Dave Schultz and Bob Probert, I did legends, classic, old school fighters. Schultz from the 70s, Probert from the late 80s and 90s, and um, I've kind of been doing old time guys like that for the first two. So I figured for this one, let's do a modern player, someone from the last 10 to 15 years. One of the one of the last, I guess, true enforcers in the to still play in the NHL. He's not still playing now, obviously. I'm not going to put anyone in while they're still playing, but this is a guy who I really loved a lot. Was one of my favorite enforcers of his entire generation. I got to see him a lot when I was a little kid because he came up through the Boston Bruins organization. I got to see him play a couple years in Providence in the AHL, and he was awesome there, fantastic to watch. Guy who would fight almost every game. He did play a few games for the Bruins in the NHL, 21 I believe, but he really made a name for himself as a New York Ranger and then finished out his career with the Toronto Maple Leafs. This guy is none other than Colton Orr. Colton Orr was a fantastic modern fighter. Really feared around the league. He was really tough, willing to fight anybody. He had cement blocks for hands, and he could really throw. He Guys didn't want to fight him, and he had a lot of really good fights throughout his career. So his career wasn't super long. He only played 477 games, and he certainly didn't do much offensively. That's for sure. In those 477 games, he only had 12 goals and 12 assists for 24 career points. But in under 500 games, he had 1,186 penalty minutes and 119 career fights. That's only that's not counting preseason fights, and it's only NHL. So he has 119 NHL fights, and he didn't play super long in the league or in a ton of games. But when he was in his prime, he was absolutely one of the top fighters in the NHL. His best year, fight-wise and offensively, came in 2008 or 2009-10. He had 23 fights that year. He had 4 goals and 2 assists for 6 points that year. That was the most fights he ever had in a season, was 23, and the most points he ever had in a season was 6. He also played 82 games that year, which was he only did that twice in his career. And that season also gave him his career high in penalty minutes in a season, which was 239. And that was also that season was his first season as a Toronto Maple Leaf. So when he went from the Rangers to the Maple Leafs, his first year in Toronto was the best of his career. So obviously, really didn't do much offensively at all throughout his career. But he was a fighter. He was a fourth liner. He knew what his role was, and he did that very well. He played in Boston from 2003 to he played one game in 2003, 2004, and then 04-05 was really his first NHL season. He split that between Boston and the New York Rangers. He played with the Rangers from 2005 to 2009, and he really made a name for himself around the league as a New York Ranger. That's where he really came into his own. Started, became an established NHL enforcer, fought a lot, and was willing to fight the toughest guys in the league. And then, as I said, 2010 was his first years in Toronto. He played there from 2009 to 2015. He had some great fights as a Toronto Maple Leaf as well. His best year in the NHL came in his first year in Toronto, and he was a guy who was just a lot of fun to watch. 7 times in his career he went over the 100 penalty minute mark. He only went over the 200 penalty minute mark that 1 year in 2009-2010. That's the only time he eclipsed 200, but seven of his seasons in the NHL, he was over 100 penalty minutes. So he was a very willing fighter, very, very tough guy. Not a super long career, and he was around for a number of years, 2003 to 2015, but he didn't. There were a lot of seasons in there where he didn't play a lot of games, whether it was injury or not being deemed NHL worthy from a hockey playing standpoint or whatever. He really faded out towards the end of his career. Toronto just couldn't get him in the lineup very often. He was a scratch a lot, spent time in the AHL. And that was, right around the time, 2013, 14, 15, when enforcers really got phased out. And, now there's really no true enforcers left in the game. You could really, Ryan Reeves, I guess you could say, would be an enforcer now. But, there are still a few guys left who fight, but not the way, they also do other things as well. There's no true, strictly fighters left the way that there were when Colton Orr broke into the league. And you saw that at the end of his career as he got phased out with all the other, players like him, guys like Jay Rosehill, Brian McGrath, and Tom Sestito. Guys like that all got phased out. So, Colton Orr is my next one. I want to do a more modern player since I did, old-time guys for the first two. Orr was one of my favorites. I grew up watching him and really saw him become one of the top heavyweights in the NHL. And he was just anytime the Bruins were playing either the Rangers or Maple Leafs with Colton Orr in the lineup, I knew that there was a chance to see a really, really good fight that night. So he was awesome, one of my favorites of the modern era, and that's what I have to say about Orr. He is definitely Enforcer Hall of Fame worthy, even though his career didn't even last 500 games. So, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. Check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links in the description. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys have ideas on who you think should be next, throw them down in the comments. I have no particular order that I'm doing this in. I wanted to do the original enforcer, Dave Schultz, first, and the greatest enforcer of all time, in my opinion, Bob Probert, second. But after that, I have no order in which I'm doing this, so throw names down in the comments that you think deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and there's probably a good chance that I'll agree with you, and we'll see our Enforcers Hall of Fame here start to fill up. So, again, thank you guys for watching. Keep this channel growing. Spread the word about it. And I'll talk to you guys soon.